Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. We've got a lot of great stories for you guys today, so stick around for the rest of the show. We're going to be going around the nation for some of the best stories and progressive political commentary from around the web. We have the world laughing at the President of the United States. That's fun. / disastrous. We also have something important from the UN General Assembly as well. We have a foreign criticism of America's current healthcare system. So, super important. I think that's really interesting to get that outside perspective, especially as we talk about Medicare for all and how we definitely should have a Medicare for all system, in my opinion. And as the 2020 election starts to get a little closer, progressive candidates running on things like Medicare for all, very, very important. So good to have that perspective. So we'll talk about that. We also have Kavanaugh in his yearbook. Something interesting in his yearbook. Somebody's name. I'll explain. That's very, very, very vague. But it's going to be actually fairly important. So it's kind of a big story. Then we have Ted Cruz getting chased out of a restaurant. That's fun. We enjoy that. And then, of course, a story we didn't get to yesterday is child detentions. And then millennials are claiming yet another victim in their war against everything. So millennials have another victim, and we're going to explain what that is. So we have that. Okay. Anyway, so fun show for you guys planned today. Hey, if you haven't already, please share the stream. Sharing is caring. It's one of the best things that you can do to help us out, other than subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, we're doing pretty good on our subscribers. Hold on. We're nearly 89,000 subscribers, which is really, really good. 88,891. So thanks to those of you who subscribed before, but especially to the new subscribers that have come in recently. Thank you guys for joining us. And of course, thanks to everybody that's chatting in the live chat right now. Thank you. Appreciate that. You can, if you're checking the stream afterwards, the recording, you can join us live at 3 p.m. Eastern if you're able to. Okay, one piece of breaking news before you get into the stories. Bill Cosby has been sentenced to 3 to 10 years for, of course, allegedly, well, not allegedly in this case. He's been sentenced for drugging and raping a woman. So, big victory for the Me Too movement. And especially for those women who, had to suffer all those years knowing what Cosby did to them. So, at least we got a little bit of justice today. And then there was a sentence. Cosby is like super old anyway. So he's pretty much going to spend, I think, what remains of his life, maybe in jail. Although they also might take that into a little bit of concern for their sentencing. Essentially, he seems to be pretty much at the end of his life. So, anyway. But hey, justice, right? That's what we wanted. Okay. Anyway. Let's... Hold. Oh, yeah. Ways you can help the show. Patreon.com/TYTNation, and then also Super Chat. And before we get going, I want to give a shout out to Angela Falco. Thank you, Angela. It's your birthday. So happy birthday to you. It's also my dad's birthday, so you've got a pretty high honor. And actually, weirdly enough, you wouldn't imagine me playing golf, right? And if you did, just imagine somebody playing golf terribly, because that's what happened this weekend. My dad took me out golfing, got me some golf clubs, so I can play poorly at any time I want. So, awesome. I appreciate that. So, anyway, happy birthday, Angela. Happy birthday to all the people who have birthdays today that I might not have mentioned. Hey, you can say in the chat, and I'll recognize you guys for having birthdays today. All right, so let's let's roll into the stories. Okay, so this is fun. Now, earlier today, President Trump addressed the UN General Assembly. Now, when he was making this speech, he started out with, of course, doing what Donald Trump does all the time. Talks about how fantastic of a job that he's done. In fact, here's where the speech starts, and you're going to love the reaction from the General Assembly. Let's take a look.
Less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
Wow. Oh, no. See, since I got elected, we have accomplished more than almost any other previous administration. Exactly what have you accomplished? I mean, giant tax cuts for the rich. Wow. That's something to be proud of. and no, see, that's the natural reaction, though. Everybody just starts laughing at this idiot, this clown. That comes up and says, oh, I'm the greatest, I'm the best. I got more accomplished than anything else. And then afterwards, it's like, well, I didn't expect that reaction. What did you expect? You're not at a Trump rally. You're not, like, in front of mindless idiots. You're in front of world leaders who have actually accomplished things. Whereas, what have you accomplished? Oh, you have robbed the treasury and put it into your own pocket. You're mired in scandal. Yeah. Amazing, right? Amazing. Now, of course, as soon as this gets out, this video, the internet decides to do what it always does best. They're going to mock the president. Love this. Philip Rucker tweeting out, said, makes a good point. Trump has long attacked Obama by claiming that the world was laughing at his leadership. Today, world leaders at the UN laughed at Trump's claim that his administration has accomplished more than any in U.S. history. That is funny, because I remember seeing that. Like, the world, our leaders are so stupid. The world is laughing at us. Well, here you have the world literally laughing at us. Oh, there's more. Nancy Krause tweets, while speaking at the UN, boasting about his imaginary accomplishments, the UN broke out into laughter. He might be able to bullshit his base, but the rest of the world knows he is a joke. A dangerous joke. The world is laughing. Jackie Combs tweets, the next time Trump claims we're respected again, remember that on this date there was laughter from world leaders assembled at the UN when he said he'd achieved more than any president in history. Love it. Steve Marmol, of course, points out that second wave of laughter, that's when translators finish translating exactly what Trump said. Awesome. Daniel Dale tweets, Trump begins his UN speech by saying his administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. There's some laughter in the hall. So true, he says. The laughter gets louder. Didn't expect that reaction. That's what happened. Paula Shertalk says, Trump at the UN, the U.S. will always choose independence over global governments. So that's important here, because Donald Trump, of course, is a believer in, there's a big globalist conspiracy against the United States. No, there's not. That is ridiculous. But, he's just like Steve Bannon right? Because Steve Bannon. So okay, let me kind of explain what globalist actually is. For those of you who might not know, basically they believe that there is a global Jewish conspiracy to control the world. Modern anti-Semitism, our president buys into that rhetoric. Oh yeah, no, the Jews control the banks, and then they control all the nations, and they control everything. Of course. We have a president in the United States that buys into the global Jewish conspiracy. Wow. Anyway, to continue with that tweet, and that statement actually from Donald Trump, he says the U.S. will always choose independence over global governments. America won't be victimized. And then Paula points it up. She's like, it's like he's the fake leader of Parador. The entire world alternates between laughter, tears, and nausea that the great USA has an illiberal imbecile for president. Well, she's absolutely right on that. We do have an imbecile. And look, here's the thing. If you're not laughing at it, what's the other option? I know there are people out there that look at this guy and they're like, that's my guy. It tells it the way it is. I like that guy. You like that guy because you don't know how much of an idiot he is. Or you don't care how much of an idiot he is. And you just like him because he hates the people that I hate. The very same people that I hate. Or another possibility is you like him because he gave me tax cuts and deregulation. I kind of like that. In fact, my wallet really, really likes that. He's an idiot, but man, he's doing everything that I want. But the rest of us, people who actually care about the country, people who actually care about regular people, even the people who, voted for Trump because of economic insecurity, right? And there are those people that do exist, although there's a lot more people who voted for Trump due to racial anxiety instead. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Most of us have to laugh or else we would literally cry. And that's pretty much where we're at. Now, Cornell Belcher says, why on earth would Trump go before UN and declare his administration has done more than almost any in history? Like, what the fuck is wrong with him? The world is literally laughing at him. America is completely losing its moral standing. He's making America a joke. Now, look, that's a good tweet, but I actually do have to go back here and put some context to it. America had a lot of problems pre-Trump. It's not as if Trump is some brand new phenomenon. We've had shitty politicians like this for years. Steve King is literally a white supremacist, and he's been in Congress for quite a long time, over a decade, at least. So we've had people like this. We have Louis freaking Gohmert. You remember Louis Gohmert? Yeah, still a student U.S. congressman, was a judge beforehand, and the guy says the most ridiculous things. Remember Sarah Palin? Donald Trump is not a new phenomenon. He just actually was the first one to make it to the presidency, being an idiot and being an outright, old school racist and misogynist, etc. He is not the disease. He's a symptom of the disease, a symptom of the real problem. So look, and the reason I'm kind of taking apart that tweet a little bit is not that I don't agree that he's, a clown and that the world is laughing. Of course the world's laughing at him. But the problem is that we had this problem long before Trump. And this problem, the problems created Trump. And maybe we should go and address those problems. But anyway, one last one here for you. Fadi Al-Qadi, interesting, says, Trump address UNGA in 2 years. I've done more than all previous administrations. Country's delegates. Response, laughter, laughter, laughter. Truth is, he has sabotaged more than any other. And I think that is absolutely correct. We have seen Donald Trump sabotage relations with a lot of different countries, our allies. We've seen that. We've seen the sabotage of healthcare. Look, as crappy as Obamacare was, it's something. And then here comes President Obama to go and sabotage it. So, and that's not the only thing. Sabotage trade. I'm for fair trade, things that actually benefit both the world and domestic workers. And we do live in a global economy, so we have to have some sort of global trade strategy that does protect our workers at home. And look, I'd love to see a trade strategy which, instead of going to the most lowest wage countries, bringing those low wage countries up, bringing their wages up so that these companies don't have anywhere to go to exploit. That would be a fantastic idea. And I'd love to see a president, and I'd love to see politicians actually try to do something like that. But overall, Trump is not that politician. Trump is not, he is not the guy to go and fix problems. He's somebody that creates problems and then profits off the chaos and the drama that ensues. That's why the world laughs at him. They know exactly what he is. They know the emperor has no clothes. They can see it. And the only other choice, other than to laugh, is to cry. Okay. All right. Let's move on here. Let's go to some policy. So here in the United States, we're still having a discussion on whether healthcare is a human right or not. It seems kind of ridiculous if you're looking at it from another country. And I know I've got some international viewers here, people from Denmark and the UK and, other countries. They look at our healthcare system, people in Canada. They have a single payer. They have government-sponsored insurance. Well, look at America like, what are you guys doing? Great example is Ban Ki-moon. Now, he is the ex-UN Secretary General. And he had some recent words that he talked to The Guardian about for our healthcare system here in America. He basically said that it is morally wrong what we are doing with our people, with our healthcare system. So let me go to The Guardian. Now, apparently he made these comments in an interview with The Guardian in New York as part of his work with something called the Elders, a group founded by Nelson Mandela to work on issues of global importance, which include universal health coverage. Now, they go on to explain, before I get into the statements here, that the U.S. is the most expensive healthcare system in the world. I am intimately familiar with that, as I think a lot of you are as well. Now, it accounts for nearly 1/5 of American GDP and costs more than $10,348 per person. So that's how much we spend per capita, right? Over 10,000. And yet we have millions of Americans that don't have insurance, and millions more who, even though they have insurance, they've got high deductibles and copays that are so outrageously high that they're not even able to actually use their insurance when they need it. So, of course, that leads to people not seeing a doctor. That leads to people rationing their medicine. That leads to people, of course, dying from lack of medicine. And I read these stories about people who are diabetic, who, I don't know, I got to ration my insulin because I cannot afford the insulin for the month. It's too much. It's too much. The healthcare system is literally killing us. Now, the UK, by comparison, spends a little under 10% of GDP, according to the latest statistics. And healthcare, of course, is free at the point of delivery, which will be a great system. And look, the UK system has its problems. The Canadian system has its problems, of course. No healthcare system is perfect. But comparatively, the United States has the worst healthcare system in the modern developed world. And there is no reason that we should have a system like that. Anyway, let's go to the statements here from Ban. He says, it's not easy to understand why such a country like the United States, the most resourceful and richest country in the world, does not introduce universal healthcare coverage. Nobody would understand why almost 30 million people are not covered by insurance. Well, if you lived here, it would actually be very, very easy to understand. Because you look at who's making money off this system. It is the large corporations. It is pharmaceutical companies. It is, health insurance corporations who make lots and lots of money denying you care. Again, the more that you use from your insurance that you pay into, the less that company can use to give to its executives in bonuses or stock options or any sort of other compensation. Now, here's the thing. He says nobody would understand. Well, look, over 70% of Americans in some of the newest polls want to go to a single-payer system. The people that don't understand get paid not to understand. Their paychecks literally depend on them having not having an understanding. He said, failing to provide health coverage is unethical, politically wrong, morally wrong, and is accusing powerful interests of pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, and doctors that inhibit the American government of having prevented the U.S. from moving towards universal health care. So that sounds a bit like Bernie Sanders there, which is cool. But it's not so much the doctors, it's the politicians. The politicians don't work for us. And Moon also says that. He said, this is for the people. Leaders are elected because they vowed that they would work for the people. They are abandoning people because they are poor. Then these poor people cannot find proper medical support. Well, look, our leaders, they're supposedly elected to serve us, but we all know the truth. They serve corporations. That's why we need massive campaign finance reform, or we are never going to win on any of these issues. Again, we have 70% of Americans that support a single-payer healthcare system. Are we even moving in that direction? In any other country, when a majority says, hey, we would like something, a majority of the populace, the leaders have to respond. Leaders usually go, oh, wow, looks like our constituents, the people that we are supposed to represent, really want something. Maybe we should consider passing it. But that doesn't happen in America. In fact, look, there was that, I believe it was a Princeton study, shows we're an oligarchy, essentially. And it pointed out that unless wealthy people, the majority of the donors, back specific policy proposals, you will never get that policy proposal, even if it has massive majority support. Whereas when an item does not have massive majority support, say, for example, tax cuts for the rich, which Donald Trump, of course, had passed, it's got over a 30% approval rating. Most of Americans do not like these tax cuts. They know that they go for to the rich. And yet, what happens? That's one of the first things the Trump administration passes. Our representatives do not represent us. They don't represent the poor. They only represent large corporations and donors. Now, Ban has his own run-in with the American healthcare system that he explained to The Guardian. Apparently, he had, while he was Secretary General between January 2007 and December of 2016, the UN provided him with a sample of American health insurance. Oh, that's fun. He said about 3 years ago, he went to pick up a prescription at a pharmacy but forgot his insurance card. A worker at the pharmacy told him that without insurance, his prescription would cost $200. But if he came back with his card, it would be $20. And so it looks like he actually has an okay healthcare plan. Now he said, quote, "It was totally unfair. People like myself can afford this, but poor people cannot afford it. They do not have any support." Look, in America, we punish poor people for being poor. We brutalize a large segment of our population. Why do I say that? I mean, that is some pretty strong language here. Brutalize? Brutalize. Yes. Why? We have the means and the ability to make healthcare for everyone, right? To have it be a human right. We have the ability to do so right now. And in fact, Medicare for all would cost less than our current system is projected to cost. Costs less. It saves money. We have the means and the ability to do this, but we are not doing it. And why don't we do that? Because we put people in power that get paid to not fix the problem. These healthcare companies, they give money to the politicians. They don't want their gravy train ended. The politicians don't want their gravy train ended. So we get stuck with the same system. We get stuck with a system that literally punishes and brutalizes and destroys poor people. That's what happens. And by the way, Ban addresses this. He says, the political interest groups, lobbyists, are so powerful. Even President, Congress, senators, and representatives of the House, they cannot do much. So they are easily influenced by these special interest groups. That is our system of legal bribery. And there is a very good chance that if that system didn't exist in America, we would have single payer. It comes down to the money. Now, he does hope that the states, since the federal government at this point is a lost cause, he hopes that states, including California and New York, will pass universal health coverage and spark a national call for public financing of health. He said, it will be either California or New York who will introduce this system. Then I think there will be many more states who will try to follow suit. I think that's an encouraging phenomenon we see. So, look, states actually got to do it first. But of course, there's always a problem with the state-by-state model. So, of course, California and New York, yeah, they could manage to pass a single-payer healthcare system. What about the people in Alabama? What about the people in Louisiana? Some of the poorest people in the world. There are stories where people in, I think it was either Alabama or Louisiana, that didn't have access, it could be both, to basic sewer systems. You think Alabama is going to pass their own single payer? You've got to be kidding me. No, I don't see that happening. It's got to be. And I understand where he's coming from. Like, look, if you have one state that doesn't, maybe that will make the national, the national government do it. And I'm in favor of states being able to pass their own single payer. But I think what we have to have is that we have to have a national single payer healthcare plan, like what Bernie Sanders is proposing. Medicare for all, expanded Medicare for all, HR 676. We've got to make it happen. And we've got to make it happen soon because you know what? There are people out there that can no longer wait for health care. Okay. Moving on. So there's more trouble for embattled Supreme Court pick Brett Kavanaugh. Now, recently there was a page in his high school yearbook. Well, I should say his entire high school yearbook has been scrutinized by reporters, but some of them found something very interesting in one of the pages. Now, according to the New York Times, the word Renate appears at least 14 times in Georgetown Preparatory School's 1983 yearbook, on individuals' pages, and in a group photo of 9 football players, including Mr. Kavanaugh, who were described as the Renate alumni. Now, what the hell is that? I mean, that's weird. Their school isn't called Renate, is it? It's not Renate Preparatory. No, it's Georgetown Preparatory. And just let me say, I'm probably going to offend some people, but chances are if you went to a prep school, you might be a douchebag. I'm just saying. Kavanaugh is certainly not helping your case. But anyway. Okay. Renate, right? What is that? Well, apparently it's not a what, it's a who. Apparently it's a reference to a school, to a woman named Renate Schroeder, then a student at a nearby Catholic girls' school. 2 of Judge Kavanaugh's classmates say the mentions of Renate were part of the football players boasting about their conquests. Oh, okay. I get it now. So, the Renate alumni apparently are these people that say, hey, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Renate alumnus right here. Yeah. Knuckleheads basically calling this girl a conquest. Gee, fun. Now, Sean Hagen, by the way, who is a fellow classmate, Georgetown prep student, referring to Kavanaugh and his teammates, said, quote, they were actually very disrespectful, at least verbally, with Renate. Oh, well, that's very interesting. It's going to contradict one of Kavanaugh's statements I'm going to tell to you in a minute. But Hagen continues. He says, I can't express how disgusted I am with them then and now. So that's some very, very strong words from Sean Hagen. Now, earlier I said chances are you go to a prep school, you're a douchebag. Take that back. Sean Hagen, definitely not a douchebag, calling out the douchebags. But anyway, okay. Fairly clear how he feels about his former classmate. Now, this high school, by the way, the atmosphere is described as a hard drinking atmosphere, right? So a lot of drinking, a lot of partying going on. And of course, there are the frat boys. There's the frat boy culture, which is very misogynistic, right? Now, here's what's interesting about this story, right? So this woman, Renate, actually had defended Kavanaugh. Well, that's interesting. Earlier this month, Renate Schroeder Dolphin, that's her new name, joined 64 other women who saying they knew Judge Kavanaugh during their high school years, signed a letter to the leaders of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is weighing Judge Kavanaugh's nomination. The letter stated that Kavanaugh has, quote, behaved honorably and treated women with respect. Huh. Now, the yearbook comes out, and apparently Miss Dolphin didn't know she was in the yearbook. In fact, she learned about these yearbook pages only a few days ago. Dolphin said in a statement to the New York Times, I don't know what Renate alumnus actually means. I think we know. Note, she also says, I can't begin to comprehend what goes through the minds of a 17-year-old boy who writes such things. But the insinuation is horrible, hurtful, and simply untrue. I pray their daughters are never treated this way. I will have no further comment. Okay, so she's like, I don't know what that means. I think we all do. When I was in high school, there was this saying, oh no, that girl, she's like the school bicycle. Okay? Everybody knows what that means. Saying you're an alumnus? It's sort of the 1983 Georgetown prep version of calling a woman a slut. Just to kind of spell it out. And look, there was also a poem written about her as well. I'm not going to repeat it, but basically it's not the greatest thing. Okay? So this woman apparently had a lot of stuff written about her in the yearbooks. And since she didn't go to that school, she had no idea. And when she had come across Kavanaugh, oh no, Kavanaugh, it seems like a nice guy. Yeah, great guy. Wonderful guy. Now you're finding out just exactly what kind of person that is. But anyway, here's a statement from Alexandra Walsh. Now, she's a lawyer for Judge Kavanaugh. She said, and you'll love this, Judge Kavanaugh was friends with Dolphin in high school. He admired her very much then, and he admires her to this day. You know what? It would have to depend on what your definition of admire is. Just saying. Doesn't seem like he respected her at all, because he insinuated some pretty hurtful things about her in the yearbook. Now, Judge Kavanaugh and Miss Dolphin, this is going back to Alexandra Walsh here, said they attended one high school event together and shared a brief kiss goodnight following that event. They had no other such encounter. The language from Judge Kavanaugh's high school yearbook refers to the fact that he and Miss Dolphin attended that one high school event together and nothing else. He and a bunch of other guys? And then people coming up with weird poems about her? Oh no, it was just that one dance. That's all they went to. Now, of course, Miss Dolphin comes back and says, actually, that's not even true. Quote, I think Brett must have confused me with someone else. I never kissed him. So this is basically turned into a high school drama. Fascinating. So, okay, here's my take of it, right? And I could be way off. I could be wrong. And I'm really kind of speculating into the personal lives of people, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to get myself in trouble. This seems like a woman who was probably not interested in dating Kavanaugh, right? Or people like him, right? And look, if you're somebody who rejects advances to certain men, well, certain men, those men might start some rumors. Those rumors go around. It's sort of like the guys who, if they're denied, they get turned down. They end up getting aggressive for being turned down because you hurt their feelings. You hurt their pride, right? And I think that there's a lot of women that are probably going to back me up on this. Look, I've seen text messages to friends of mine from random guys, right? They start out nice. Hey, how you doing? You know, you're beautiful. You got such a nice smile. And then it's like, hey, can you show me some pictures? And then when you're not interested, girl's like, I'm not interested. Or they don't answer back. It devolves into, well, fuck you, slut. What are you, too good for me? I mean, come on. I think a lot of women have probably had that experience. So this might be a little bit of that. Oh no, I respect, I really admire this woman so much that I insinuate that she's a slut. Right. Now continuing on. Some of Judge Kavanaugh's high school peers said that there was a widespread culture at the time of objectifying women. No, really? Creepy frat boys objectifying women in high school? No. Well, I never. Yeah, of course that's what happens. And of course, this is a case of that. In fact, people claiming that they had sex with other people was not terribly unusual, and it was not terribly believable, said William Fishburne, who was in Judge Kavanaugh's graduated class and was a manager for the football team. Not just Brett and his particular group, but all the classmates in general. People would claim things they hadn't done to sort of seem bigger than they were, older than they were. Bill Barbitt, who was a freshman at Georgetown Prep when Judge Kavanaugh was a senior, said Kavanaugh and his clique were part of the school's fratty culture. There was a lot of talk and presumably a lot of action about sexual conquest with girls, Barbeau said. So what this is, and actually you can look at this as just one example of some of the toxic culture in high schools and colleges. I mean, look, the most important takeaway here actually is not really about Kavanaugh himself, but it's the culture surrounding it, right? I think there needs to be a broader discussion on how men traditionally treat women, especially young men in school situations, how they treat women. Okay. And yet, of course, there are going to be people who defend that and say, oh, no, the boys are just being boys. Maybe, well, no, I don't agree with that. Boys being boys, that's not being boys. That's being a douchebag. That's being a jerk. Maybe we should actually, I don't know, not be like that and not be assholes. That'd be great. But anyway, Susan Matan, a friend of Kavanaugh's from high school, says, oh, no. These guys weren't any different than other boys' high schools across the country. And I chose to hang out with those boys, and many other girls did too, because they were fun, they were safe, and they were respectful. Well, what they did to poor Renee, not so respectful, very disrespectful, in fact. Now, some of Judge Kavanaugh's peers said they doubted that the yearbook notations were good-natured. No, really. Quote, this is Mr. Fishburne again, saying those guys weren't big on crushes. I think they felt that if a girl didn't want to date them, they must be gay. I'm serious. So again, this goes back to douchebag frat guy culture and toxic masculinity. That's it. I know some people get triggered by that, but there is masculinity, being a strong person, being a strong role model, being a good man. And then there's toxic masculinity, which is going around making shitty insinuations about women, right, that are not factual. And even if you did have a sexual conquest with such a person, that doesn't mean everybody else should know about it. That doesn't mean you should go out and brag to everybody. It's ridiculous. And that definitely needs to be addressed. We need to actually start, I don't know, learning how to respect people. But anyway, look, that frat boy culture, it's got to change. Now, if this is who he was, right, and he is no longer that person, then what would satisfy me is him coming out and saying, look, man, I was a dick. Like, I was not a good person when I was in high school. I said things that I didn't, that I shouldn't have. I said things that I didn't mean. Or I meant them at the time, and then I grew up because I was a ridiculous bonehead, knucklehead, frat guy. I'm not that person anymore. I actually take things seriously. And I apologize for what I said in the past about women and etc. Now, that's separate from the allegations. If the allegations against him are not true, then I think an apology for being an insensitive asshole would be fine. Now, again, that's separate from allegations, if the allegations are true, but it's also separate from his political stances. I'm against him politically. But as a person, if he comes out and says, and this applies to everybody, if you come out later and say, I was a douchebag, and I'm not a douchebag, I'm not that same person anymore, and I made a lot of mistakes, then great. Okay, great. You're taking responsibility for your actions, for your words. Because, look, I've made mistakes. I have my, one of my high school pictures, I'm wearing a very questionable t-shirt, right? That I know was wrong. And I apologize for it because it was ridiculous and I was dumb. You grow up and you hopefully become a better person. So all this is not about going back and saying, oh, Kavanaugh, so terrible when he was younger and there's no redemption whatsoever. No, if he was a douchebag back then, but he's not a douchebag anymore, and he didn't do those things, those allegations, again, I'm still going to be against him politically because he has some pretty abhorrent views, but at least I'd be like, okay, that, you know what, you made mistakes in the past. I'm not going to hold that against you, So that's what I'm trying to be, like, incredibly fair and actually have some standards. I know the right doesn't have a lot of standards, but at least I try to have standards. But at the same time, if the allegations are true, well, then that's it. You may have made mistakes in the past, but one mistake that is unforgivable is sexual assault or rape. Okay? Those are the things that are unforgivable. And that's what he's accused of. And now there are more accusers coming out, which, if they're true, establishes a pattern of behavior. And we're already up to 4 now. Okay? And again, we need an investigation to see if those are true. And if one of those or 2 of those or any of those are true, he must immediately withdraw himself from consideration. Because this is a job interview for a very, very important lifetime position. And we should not allow people on the court that have done heinous things to serve on that court. Okay. I hope I'm clear. So, here's what I'm going to do. Got the Ted Cruz story coming up next. We'll do that, but we're going to take a break real quick. Any more birthdays or super chats or anything? I will read them after the break when I come back. Stay right here, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Around the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So I love how this Kavanaugh discussion has started a discussion in our chat about geeks versus jocks. Or at least, you know. So here's the thing. Yes, I was a bit of a geeky nerd in high school. Wow, surprise. But I was one of those that tried not to be one. I don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, there was a point in my life where I wore all black. I'm just going to leave it at that and not, because that's embarrassing. But anyway, a lot of stuff I did when I was in high school was embarrassing. But anyway, okay. So before I get back into the show, I do want to give a shout out. I know this isn't necessarily a birthday, but it is happy nonetheless. But E. Joseph Peltier recently got married, and I just want to say congratulations to his partner. So thank you, you know, congratulations, I should say, for that. And yes, I'm a computer video game geek / nerd. So that's what I do. Okay. Anyway, let's go into the stories. That's enough about that. All right. Recently, Ted Cruz got a little more than he bargained for at dinner. See, he may have ordered the salad, but instead, he got a side of protest. In some videos posted to Twitter, there's a group of activists that are seen confronting the Texas Republican and his wife, Heidi, as the couple makes their way to a table at Fiola, an Italian restaurant near the Capitol building. Now, I want to show you one of those videos. This is after the protesters had confronted Cruz, the Cruz family, at their table, and they are shouting, of course, "We believe survivors." So let's take a look at that video.
We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
Beto is way hotter than you do.
We believe survivors!
We believe survivors.
God bless you. We believe survivors!
God bless you.
Excuse me. Let my wife through.
We believe survivors.
Forgotten you. We believe survivors! 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 We believe survivors!
Texas
racist, anti-gay! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
We believe survivors.
Leave the premises. This is a private state.
Oh, were you in the middle of dinner? I'm so sorry. Not really. Oh, hey, you know, you might want to look into delivery now, or maybe DiGiorno. No, seriously though. Okay, so group of protesters coming to the restaurant. Look, to be fair, if I was a patron in the restaurant, okay, that's a bad example. But say like there's a person who's not politically minded or motivated sitting in the restaurant, they might find that a little annoying. Well, to that I say also kind of tough, because hey, that looked like a pretty upscale restaurant. So I have no qualms. I would give no fucks. Go ahead and interrupt their dinner. As long as you're not like getting violent, I think that's great protest. That's just me. Now, here's the thing. So he gets chased out of this restaurant. Fun ensues, and then of course the people there at the restaurant are like, "You gotta go," and they're like, "Okay, yeah, we did our job. We chased Ted Cruz out of the restaurant. Now we're gonna go home." Okay, fun. Beto O'Rourke. Now Beto O'Rourke is running a campaign against Ted Cruz. I am now accusing Beto of being too goddamn nice. Because check out what he said, and I hate when this happens. Beto says, not right that Senator Cruz and his wife Heidi were surrounded and forced to leave a restaurant last night because of protesters. The Cruz family should be treated with respect. Oh. What are you doing, Beto? What are you doing? You are being too nice to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is the guy who would throw his own family under the bus if it meant some sort of political advancement. In fact, that's exactly what he did. He bent the knee to Donald frickin' Trump after his family. And you want to talk about the Cruz family should be treated with respect. Cruz didn't treat his own family with respect. Donald Trump literally called his wife Heidi ugly. Oh, picture says 1,000 words. And you still bent the knee. Oh, his dad, Rafael Cruz, killed JFK. What did Ted Cruz do? Nothing. Nothing. No. He throws his own family under the bus. So he doesn't deserve respect at all. He's a beta. Sorry. And look, were they forced to leave? No, they weren't forced to leave. Nobody told them to get out. In fact, the protesters were told to get out. That's what happened. So, look, as citizens, we have the right to redress our grievances. Sometimes that's not pretty. Whether it's people shutting down traffic to protest the killing of an unarmed black person, or walking up in some bougie restaurant and chanting, "We believe survivors." Sometimes it ain't pretty. Sometimes it gets in the way of things. Sometimes it annoys people. Guess what? That's what protest. If protest was nice, if protest didn't cause a ruckus, do you think that it would ever be effective? Not at all. Now some of you are like, yeah, but I wouldn't want to get protested like that. Then don't be a dick. Then don't support people like Kavanaugh, who right now is facing 4 different accusations of sexual assault, putting his junk in people's faces. Maybe you shouldn't do that. So I'm just really tired of this idea that we have to be really respectful to our representatives. No. These are our representatives. They work for us. They're supposed to represent us. We're supposed to have access to them, right? And here's the thing. Maybe people wouldn't have to go and protest in a restaurant if these politicians would actually listen to regular people. But the only way for most of these politicians to actually sit down and listen to us is we have to write them a big giant check first. That's not democracy. That's not being a representative. That's not representing anything. So, you know what? I'm in favor of this. Not just because I hate Ted Cruz, but I also hate the way that our system is going. If you want to have access to your politician, you shouldn't have to write a gigantic check just to be able to voice your opinion. This is a democracy. This is America. Okay. I think I'm fairly clear here. Let's do one more story here. Millennials. Let me say that again. Ugh. Millennials just can't seem to stop killing things. I mean, whether it's Applebee's, diamonds, mayonnaise, golf, housing, so on, millennials just can't stop murdering American institutions. I mean, take the latest one. Divorce. Wait, what? According to new data, millennials, by far, and of course some members of Gen X, are actually getting divorced far less than the previous generations, baby boomers especially. Now, according to analysis by the University of Maryland sociology professor Philip Cohen, the U.S. divorce rate has dropped 18% between the years of 2008 and 2016. Fascinating. Now, Suzanne Brown, a sociology professor at Bowling Green State University, the site of that horrible massacre, by the way, our prayers go out to you, thoughts and prayers, said the change among young people is particularly striking, and says the characteristics of young married couples today signal a sustained decline in divorce rates in the coming years. So basically, millennials are fantastic at not divorcing people. Wonderful. Except that's not really the whole story. In fact, it actually gets dark. So let's get to more factors here. Now, the thing is, it's not that millennials are fantastic at staying together. The factors that are driving this more is, for one, millennials aren't getting married as much, and also the fact that the boomers are literally terrible. Young people are getting credit for fewer divorces because boomers have continued to divorce at unusually high rates all the way into their 60s and 70s. So you still got old people divorcing. Turns out I spent 40 years with you and I didn't even like you. Well, why spend 40 years? I know, they stay together for the kids, right? Which is another thing that millennials are apparently also avoiding, is having children too young, as the teen pregnancy rate is way, way down, according to analysis by the Guttmacher Institute. Now, let's go back to more of the Bowling Green's National Center for Family and Marriage Research statistics here. They said from 1990 to 2015, the divorce rate doubled for people aged 55 to 64 and even tripled for Americans 65 and older. Cohen's results suggest this trend, called gray divorce, may have leveled out in the past decade, but boomers are still divorcing at much higher rates than previous generations did at similar ages. So it's not that we're fantastic, and even though we do divorce less than boomers, or we divorce less than overall, partly that trend is because boomers were so terrible in the first place at not staying together. That's amazing. So on to the stuff that we're doing right. Well, I mentioned it earlier. We're not getting married as much, right? And we're also doing it later. And a lot of people are waiting till they have, good jobs and a decent education. So no more getting married as soon as you get out of high school, 18, 20 years old. No, that time is usually spent trying to get a college degree in order to try to hope to get at least a decent job that pays the bills. And that's what we've been doing. Okay. Now, what's interesting about that, a lot of people are waiting for good jobs and good money, right? And trying to get an education for that. That is a good symptom, or I should say a bad symptom, of our uncertain economic times. In fact, many poorer and less educated Americans are opting not to get married at all. They are living together, raising kids together, but not actually getting married, which is interesting. And studies have shown that these cohabitating relationships are actually less stable than they used to be. So, look, this is the economic reality for millennials. The institution of marriage now is more reserved towards people who have more money instead of the poor. Now, that's not saying that everybody who gets married is wealthy. I'm married. I'm nowhere near wealthy. But I also got married at the courthouse and didn't have a wedding. I couldn't afford a wedding then, and I can't afford a wedding now. So it's incredibly expensive. But the thing is that what's driving this trend among millennials is the fact that we grew up in the midst of the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. That experience has damaged a lot of us as a generation. Stagnant wages, right? The cost of getting an education, the cost of buying houses, the cost of buying cars. A lot of people don't have access to any of those things. You know, we're the Uber generation, we're the renter generation. And it's because of those terrible economic factors. So there's not a lot of people that can get married in the first place. And if you're not getting married in the first place, it's less likely to divorce. Also, if you get older, or, married when you're older, there's a better chance that you're, more stable, more mature, and also not as likely to get divorced. So marriage, again, is basically something that either millennials can't do or don't really want to do. Just like owning a home, buying a brand new car, having a family. It's a lot of this economic factors, which, of course, is all connected with the massive amounts of income and wealth disparity in this country. So maybe instead of blaming millennials for killing all these things, including marriage and divorce, maybe we should start looking at the real culprit. Modern American-style capitalism. Just saying. Okay. So, that's it. I know, speaking of weddings, and then I had to go and bring it down, didn't I? Okay. Anyway, there's a couple of interesting comments here. Super chat from Coffee Crow asks, don't some states have the common law marriage where if you live long enough together, you're legally married? Is that any different than getting married? You don't have to sign any paperwork, basically. I mean, that's really all I know from it, is there's no paperwork involved, so I don't even know if it's considered legal. But as I said before, and I'm seeing a lot of comments here from, let's see, got married on the beach, family paid for dinner, right? Right? Who can afford these fancy, crazy weddings that you see on television? Nobody. At least nobody I know. I got married at the courthouse, and then, my family ended up paying for a hotel room for the night. Great. That was great. I don't need a fancy, crazy wedding. So, but some people prefer it. But it's one of those things that it really is reserved for people who are wealthy, who are more well off, or who take, like, save for the last, for like a decade or something to save up for it, or take out massive amounts of debt. I mean, it's something that I've never been able to do, throw a big wedding, and something that I don't think I'll ever be able to do. Not on my salary, man. Not on my salary, which I don't even have a salary, but anyway. So, yeah. Interesting discussions, guys. And thank you for the super chat, Coffee Crow. I appreciate that. And the question as well. Thank you for the super chat, Platypie. Happy birthday again. Hopefully is a good day. You have a great day, actually. An awesome day. You really should enjoy your birthday. Because, yeah, it comes around every year. But there's going to be a year where you're not going to have birthdays anymore. There's going to be a time where you don't have birthdays anymore. And then you will be dead. And then nothing will be great. Everything will suck. Or not be existing at all. Okay, I'm rambling. All right. I think that means it's time to end the show. Thanks, guys. Love you guys. Remember, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation. And try to help us get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We are definitely on our way of doing it. Almost 89,000, so remember to share our videos everywhere you can, because sharing is caring. 88,904 subscribers, by the way. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, guys. We'll see y'all tomorrow.